This Q&A article by Reverend Dr. Jesse Jennings is from the August issue of the Science of Mind magazine. Question: why is it said in some branches of metaphysics that there are no healers? I thought everybody could heal, and that this is the whole point. Answer: there are no healers is the blunt expression some use to convey exactly that idea, that everybody can heal. Ernest Holmes clarifies: do not allow yourself to become superstitious, for you are dealing with a normal, natural law in the mental and spiritual world. This law is just as real as any other known law. Never say, I am not sure that I have enough power to treat. You can never heal with this mental attitude, for that implies that you think you are doing the healing. Rather say, as I let fall the forms of my thought, they are operated on by principles in which I believe. The Science of Mind, page 220 to 221. Just as there is no spiritual wisdom given to some but not to others, so no unique healing powers are conferred only on a select few. People don't heal. Correct use of principles does. By healing is meant the revealing of intrinsic wholeness, and the person who best uses spiritual healing principles is the one who most completely feels their connectedness to that wholeness. So we might think of ourselves as agents of healing, in that we engage with wholeness and declare it to be present and obvious in the conditions at hand. We know, for instance, that there is intelligence in every cell of the body. We don't cause this to be so. We don't control it. We don't claim credit for it. We simply affirm it. Everyone has the power to do this, and probably the greatest agent of healing ever known to us said that it was not him, his charisma, reputation, or strength of will, but the Father, that is, the presence within him that did the work. His disciples were taught the same process of faith operating from the inside out. They were called to believe as their teacher believed and to love. We might think of ourselves as agents of healing in that we engage with wholeness and declare it to be present and obvious in the conditions at hand. We know, for instance, that there is intelligence in every cell of the body. We don't cause this to be so. We don't control it. We don't claim credit for it. We simply affirm it. That was a long one.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, I think we have another song.
Yes. Okay, you will know the tune of this next song, but there's a man named Mr. Jack Castle who has written some New Thought lyrics to it. So he gave Francis Scott Key a little help. Oh, say, can you see by your own inner light that the peace we all have is a peace that's worth keeping? No more wars, no more scars, we'll not needlessly fight. And the dream that is ours is a dream that's worth dreaming. We will all learn to care as we become aware. This place where we live is a planet we share. So proudly we honor the banner we wave, where all nations will be free and all men will be slaves. Jack Castle did.
Jack
A man
Castle.
named Jack Castle.
Wow,
It's
thank
called
you.
Anthem for Peace.
Thank you. Well, right now it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Reverend Kate DuVivier, and I think it's it's peace and prosperity. Great, thank you.
I want to thank you for doing that reading, Pat. It was a long reading. Am I loud enough? I know there's a little noise from the fan, which we are going to keep on today. We usually turn it off, but not today. But that's really the thing that is so important that we need to keep reminding ourselves is like, there's nobody in here who has any magic powers for healing, right? We're working with spiritual principles, and we're all students of these principles, and as we grow to learn more and more, we can experience more and more. That's what we do here. And so I'm saying that because anyway, I thought you did a nice job, Pat. I know I just handed it to you this morning and it was long, but today my topic is peace and prosperity, and Reverend Maureen and I thought it would be good to start off September talking about peace, since we have this backdrop of war going on that we keep hearing about and challenges. And peace and prosperity really should be very easy topics for us religious scientists. And we teach peace and we teach prosperity, and peace or peacefulness is the essence of the feeling that we constantly try to get to through our personal spiritual practices like meditation and affirmation, and the whole idea of looking on the bright side and turning away from the unwanted towards the wanted. Reverend Maureen talked last week about how to have peace of mind, and that getting peace of mind is fundamental. It's a fundamental spiritual practice. It's really important to learn how to find that peace of mind, because on a personal level, when we feel calm and when we feel at peace, it can actually take us into an amazing sensation of feeling almost like life is snapping back into place. It's like when you are able to meditate, when you're able to quiet everything, it's almost like, imagine life as a jigsaw puzzle and suddenly it's all in order. It's put together. You see how things really are. It's not just a jumble of pieces in a box waiting to be solved. I don't know, it's hard to describe. What does it feel like when you feel peaceful? But, I'm just trying to say, it feels good, it feels nice, and it's hard to describe. And I know that every person experiences it slightly differently, but it's almost like when you're at peace, life, your life and life just kind of comes into focus. When we have peace of mind, we will discover that we also have clarity of mind. And when we have clarity of mind, when we're able to see the world rightly, not distorted, when we see the world clearly, we can become aware that not only is good just possible, but good is the natural state of life. And by life, I mean our personal lives, but I also mean the greater life, the allness in which we live and have our being. So usually when we talk about becoming peaceful, you know, we just say, let's all have peace. This week, I thought, you know, people always say, let's have peace and prosperity, right? Two good things, they kind of go together. So I just thought, well, I'll talk about that. But then I realized, wow, I really struggled with this talk because we tend to focus on our individual spiritual practice. You know, usually when we come on Sunday, we're talking about our individual experience of prosperity. We have our unexpected income program that everyone is invited to participate in. And that's a program where people are asked to do daily treatment for opening themselves up to allowing new and unexpected sources of prosperity to flow into their lives. It's a great practice. It's a really good way to reinforce for yourself the power of thinking, the power of treatment and prayer and affirmation. But it is an individual practice. I mean, we like to share, so thank you, Reverend Maureen and Robert, for sharing a demonstration or a manifestation that you had. And every week it seems like someone has been able to share some example of unexpected good that came to them. And really, when you get right down to it, peace is a state of inner calm. Infinite Spirit is always at peace. A realization of our oneness with this all good life itself does bring us peace. And when we think about prosperity, it's not just money, right? We need to be clear. Prosperity, and this is right from the glossary of the Science of Mind text. Prosperity is the outpicturing of substance in our affairs. So what is substance? Spiritual substance is everything. And we know and we believe that everything in manifestation, everything in our minds, everything that we are, is spirit. Substance is what happens when spirit creates through becoming what it creates. And since spirit is infinite, unlimited, eternal, it is always creating and never getting used up at all. So everything material or experienced is the result of this consciousness, which we often call thought, taking form. So the manifest universe is the outward form of the thought of spirit. So prosperity is more than money. Prosperity is the life that we live, everything that we're experiencing. So today, I happen to have seen that we've got quite a lot of treats on the table waiting for us. This is also prosperity too. You know, abundance in all its forms are manifestations or outpicturings, we call it, of prosperity. So success and prosperity are spiritual attributes belonging to all people. But what Ernest Holmes said, I'm kind of paraphrasing him, he said they belong to all people, but they're not necessarily used by all people. But when we're in a state of peacefulness, we're also, or we are able to cultivate our ability to tap into these spiritual attributes of success and prosperity. So that's why peace and prosperity do go hand in hand. Our experience of prosperity is correlated with our experience of peace. So when we say, change your thinking and change your life, we're essentially saying the very same thing that Jesus must have meant when he said, it is done unto you as you believe. And I do want to be clear that success and prosperity are just two of your many spiritual attributes. You know, when we light the candles every week, we're naming some of these other spiritual attributes also. So while usually we talk about these spiritual attributes, these spiritual principles on an individual basis, and we don't always focus on what's happening in the greater world, partly because I'm supposed to try to keep my talks down too, you know, so we can get out of here. I can go on and on, but we don't always think about or talk about what's happening in the greater world. And part of it is just time, and part of it is because we really do believe that our experience starts with us and flows out into the greater world. And that when we become self-aware, that flowing out, that being able to cultivate a sense of peace and allowing that to flow out becomes much stronger than our experience that we all have, because we're all interconnected of what we read in the news or what we see on TV, or, you know, the kind of annoying person who is tailgating us on the freeway. I mean, there's lots of different kinds of discord, right? It's not just nationwide discord. There's just little bits of discord too. But when we're centered in peace, somehow we're just in the flow, and these things don't bother us, and we don't personally experience them that much. So I really do believe that in the end, it is our individual thoughts that we have to work with. But at the same time, we also need to constantly remember that we are very connected with each other. You know, right here in this room, we have people who are working on projects in India. So Dr. Lori, Reverend Dr. Lori is here, and she's been doing, what are you up to now? 75?
Over 100.
Over 100 water wells in India.
I would give you the unexpected income, but it's not, doesn't go to my bank account.
Yeah, it's not, right. No, it's to the world. It's like, you know, and other people too are connected with other things in the world and helping. So really connect in a very big picture in our own center. Also gave towards those wells, and I know a lot of you have traveled different parts of the world. You have friends all over. You had experiences and are going to have more experiences with other people. And so we're not, I mean, religious science, when I think of religious science, I don't really think of us as being one of what you would call the peace churches, like Quakers or Mennonites. I would say we fall in the category of a healing church. So we're very focused on healing, and like Pat said, not like just because I'm a minister, I'm a better healer than someone else who's not, because these are just spiritual practices and we learn to use them. But we're very connected. So one way to think about it is to imagine that the spiritual universe is like a great ocean. Although, of course, it's like infinite. The ocean's not infinite, really. But you can think of each person as being like a drop of water. Each person has the attributes of the ocean, but they're not the whole ocean. Each drop of water is still salt water, just like the ocean. It has whatever chemicals or salt, whatever, that the ocean has, but it's just not the whole ocean. And yet, it is the drops of water swirling around that create the waves, the currents, according to natural laws. Right? Now, our lives also unfold according to natural laws, but unlike drops of water, we actually have the gifts of self-awareness, and we actually have the gift of freedom of thought. So being free, we're not just swirling around, we're making decisions. And we're not just making them alone. That's where our interconnectedness sometimes, you know, it gets a little dicey, like, oh, okay. Because what we don't want to do is just pull away completely from the world, or I don't know, maybe you do. Pull completely away from the world and become so solitary that we're not affected by the rest of the world. It doesn't really work. We stay connected. And so what we do is we live, you could think of it as living with one foot in each realm, the spiritual realm and the physical realm. We just do. And it's very interesting. And I think it's why, and maybe you've experienced this, because, you know, we teach get peace of mind through meditation, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes we also can feel a wonderful sense of peace, an ecstatic sense of peace, when we're able to figure something out or puzzle something out, and we see a solution to something that's been you know, troubling us or that we're really interested in. It makes us feel more awake to what's going on around us. You know, people talk about openness, like it's good to have an open mind. And if you're like me, sometimes you might feel like, yeah, that other person, they need to have an open mind. They're wrong. They ought to see things the way I see them, you know. I mean, even if all of your friends are perfect and wonderfully like-minded, you know that there's always disagreement, but we're all on our own little pathway, aren't we? You know, that's why we can learn to get along. But when we're engaging in that level of criticism, looking at another person and thinking of them as, well, a dummy, or whatever, misguided, whatever nice word we want to put on it. That kind of feeling awake, that kind of, you know, I'll call it fake problem solving, doesn't bring you to a feeling of peace. We don't feel peaceful if we're busy thinking about how misguided so-and-so is. But on the other hand, we can't just sit in a chair in a closed-off room and meditate forever with no distractions. So peace is not like a rock. Peace is not like a chair. You can't just walk over to it and sit on it. I like to think that peace is a little bit more like a river. You know, peace is not stagnant. Peace is not static. If you just think about, in your mind, if you can remember some time when you stood or sat near a creek or a river, and you just spent a few minutes watching the river go by, didn't you feel peaceful? It's like almost automatic when you see the water flowing. It just engenders a sense of peacefulness. And so, because of that, I was thinking, well, maybe peace is a good metaphor. I mean, water, flowing water in a river is a good metaphor for what peace is like. Peace is like a river in some ways, but of course not in all ways, you know. But I think it's helpful to just visualize that peace can be in circulation, just like water can be in circulation. Just like the air that we breathe is always in circulation. Now we know that a farmer needs water, right? Or a gardener needs water. So we know what happens to crops if there's a drought. You know, that's obvious. They wither. So Does a farmer need peace? Well, it's interesting. It's been especially interesting for me because Ukraine is one of the world's bread baskets, just like the United States is one of the world's bread baskets. So the impact of war in Ukraine, which has been devastating to them, has also impacted the price of food all over the world. You know, even our own country, the price of grain and food products has gone up, even though we are our own breadbasket, but it's just changed the distribution channels for getting grain here and there. And so some of the supplies that we might have used in our own country are flowing overseas, and things change. So you could say that, yeah, a farmer needs peace. Not just that, but in their own country, of course, even the land itself has been damaged, the storage facilities have been damaged, the shipping lines have been altered. So there's a huge impact, not just on the people involved in the situation, but it flows out into the world in different ways. So think about it. On an individual basis, one gardener needs water, one farmer needs peace. But on a communal basis, our interconnectedness means that we're all affected by to a certain degree by the impacts of war and conflict on our food supplies. And I could go through different industries. There are many industries that have been impacted. You know, the price of fuel, for instance, that's an obvious one. But I'm not going to go through that all. I think you could see how what happens in one place affects what happens in another place, because even though we're far away, we're not totally separate. This is this idea of interconnection. And while the people who are really involved are going to be more worried, or at least I would be more worried about their survival than their prosperity, these problems do flow out into the world. We're connected because peace is essential to life. So that to a certain degree, we can say that when peace is choked off, life is being choked off. And that's why I think we can say in the wider world, there is a strong connection between peace and prosperity that we also do experience on an individual level. So, you know, back here, right in this room, right, you know, sitting in our own chairs, or me standing up here. Since we know that we do have self-awareness, since we know that we do have freedom of thought, if we want to experience more peace and prosperity in our lives and in our world, what should we do? What can we do? The founder of religious science, Ernest Holmes, said repeatedly that the world has learned all it needs to by suffering. And I'm sure you've heard, you know, people say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And it's obvious. War does not actually end war. Only peace can end war. Poverty cannot end poverty. Only prosperity can end poverty. It's just like darkness never ends darkness. You've got to turn the light on to end darkness. It's the light. And this is why it is that we say in our thoughts, we need to turn away from the unwanted situation whether it's war, whether it's discord, whether it's lack. We think of poverty as lack, whether it's sickness. We turn away from it because the more we think about that, it's not getting at a solution. The change comes when we look to what it is that we want to experience. When we begin to fill our minds and to think about what is wanted, then by changing our thinking, our lives change. And it's not magic. It may be that we suddenly realize, oh, guess what? You know what? I really am able to contribute or work for this thing that I believe in. Or perhaps it's that I would like to have a feeling of more love in my family. It starts with me. I'm going to see my family, my friends, those people in the other political party, not my party, the other political party, I'm going to see them as beautiful expressions of spirit also. I'm going to see them as surrounded with the love of spirit, of being on their perfect path towards good also. When I change my thinking, then that peacefulness brings not only my own world into harmony, but to go back to the idea of how drops of water create waves. These ideas create waves in our shared life, as well as new beginnings for our individual life. And that brings me back to what Reverend Maureen said last week. When we respond to life around us in a manner that we might call heartfelt, instead of totally, opinionated or intellectual, instead of with a feeling of confusion. When we get centered in peace and we no longer feel overwhelmed by circumstances, but we feel in harmony with the universe and recognize that peace is the divine reality at the heart of God. And Maureen suggested that we stop reacting to what's happening around us and just stop and take a breath and allow our center of consciousness to drop from our, chattering minds into our heart, into a sense of harmony, into our inner wisdom. Tap into that feeling of love. So if you struggle to feel peace of mind, like I often do. So I've studied this for a long time, but sometimes I do. It's hard sometimes to settle down enough to meditate. So just maybe try spending a little time in nature. After we're done with our refreshments, just take the ocean route home. Drive over, look at it for a few minutes. Or just, if we could have the habit of turning off our cell phones and just spend a few minutes drawing or doodling or working on a craft. It really is centering, isn't it, when you're just become absorbed in something else that is just arises from you, arises from within you when you tap into that heartfelt center. Yes, I can even say, even washing the dishes can shift you into the mood, as long as you're not thinking about oh, I have to hurry because I've got to blah, blah, blah. But if you can just focus on what you're doing and enjoy that moment without thinking about what's next, you can settle into a sense of peace and harmony. And as time goes on and as we study these principles and try them out, and become more and more aware of the amazing truth about ourselves, that each of us actually is an individualization of the one spirit, which is all there is. As we do that, we're also able to transcend whatever is happening within us or outside of us and begin to create a new beginning with our new fresh thoughts. So I've been reading a book by Neville Goddard, who was an independent New Thought teacher. He was born a little bit later than Ernest Holmes. He was from Barbados. And he teaches basically the same ideas, although he speaks about it differently. And, you know, we often say things like, well, when we lit the candles, Reverend Maureen invited you to affirm, I am the light, I am the love. We often talk about the I am consciousness. And Neville wrote that this I am means your consciousness. And all we have to do is remind ourselves that no one but you can say that word, I am. Isn't that interesting? We can all say it. We're all connected in this ability, but you can't say I am for me. Only I can say I am for me because it requires our individual consciousness. So Neville wrote that your consciousness, this I am, is the only door through which anything can pass into your world. He said that's what Jesus meant when he said, I am the way. Neville said we need to stop looking for signs, predictions, also stop looking at things that happened in the past. He said signs follow. They do not lead. And this is the same idea that Judge Thomas Troward expressed, and we talked about it many times, when he said, the past is not precedent. So we're not controlled by the past, and we're not controlled by somebody else's idea of the future. We agree with the statement that Jesus said, it is done to you as you believe. And Neville said that based on this, we should stop saying seeing is believing. You know, seeing is believing, like, I mean, my mom's family came from Missouri, the Show Me State. Seeing is believing. I'll believe it when I see it. Neville said, no. You need to turn that on its head and start saying, believing is seeing. I'll see it when I believe it. Neville said, start now to believe, not with the wavering confidence based on external evidence, but with an undaunted, strong confidence based on the immutable law that you can be that which you desire to be. And you will find that you are not a victim of fate, but you are a victim of faith. So the second victim, he's using it in a good way. It's your faith that controls your life, not, well, there's no such thing as fate, really. We don't believe in fate. We believe that we have the gift of thinking and decision. Neville said, only through one door can that which you seek pass into the world of manifestation. Your consciousness, the I am, is the door. So you must become conscious of being, and you must become conscious of having that which you desire to be, and to be that which you desire to be. He said that the ideas and the statements, and I'm sure you sometimes make these little statements, I have. saying, I am wealthy. Well, sometimes we say, I am poor. I am worried about money. I am healthy. Or maybe you say, oh, I feel sick today. Not so healthy. I am free. I feel so confined. I just wish, we all, this is like what we call our monkey mind at work, and so we need to slow that down, and that's where spiritual principles can help us get to that center of calm, where we can make a definite declaration, and that's what we teach with affirmation and spiritual mind treatment, is that we don't have to just be ruled by our random thoughts. We can have declarations, powerful thoughts, and build our belief. As Ernest Holmes taught, the fact is, well, as Jesus said, heaven is within us. Ernest Holmes said, we experience heaven, we experience the good to the degree that we become conscious of it. Staying centered in the truth that life is essentially good strengthens us so that we can understand that no matter what discord or hardship is being suffered by us, ourselves, or other people, it is temporary, and like all suffering, it shall pass. Yes, there are wars now, and there will be peace. We know that. There's always been peace. We can believe that it will happen now. There's no advantage to waiting for some far-off day. And when we know that, when we work on believing that more and more strongly, we can be free to know the greater truth right now. That this thing we call life is peace, it is prosperity, it is intelligence, it is love already. We don't have to change it. That's its nature. Spirit is already perfect, abundant, infinite, eternal. It's a matter of us coming to understand it, becoming aware of it. So I just wanted to close with a declaration of truth that was written by Daisy Baum, which I really like it. This is what she wrote. I am that spirit which is immortal. I am that peace which is freedom. I am that health which is changeless. I am that wisdom that is perfect. I am that nature which is harmony. I am that life which is eternal. I am that law which is order. I am that activity which is equal to every demand. I am that success which is prosperity. I am that supply which is abundance. I am that love which is conscious unity. This is the truth of my divinity. And so it is. Thank you.